All right, well, my name is Carrie Lapp, and I think what we've seen this morning so far, hearing from our speakers, is how mental illness and addiction just are always kind of interweaved, whether the suicidal thoughts come from being so deep in your addiction, or whether they're two separate things. I want to give you an example of my family story, where they were two separate things and yet they were so together. Wasn't that long ago, I was married, we lived here in Pennsylvania, and my brother called me, my whole family lives in Kansas, and he said, you need to come home, there's something wrong with mom. Can't put my finger on it, but there's something wrong with mom. And so, being the dutiful daughter I am, the hero of the family, I got on a plane and came home, and it wasn't very long before I couldn't put my finger on it either, but I knew there was something wrong with my mother. My mother was a nurse anesthetist. She had been one for, 25 years, and she was teaching. She was an instructor, and she had about 10 students under her that she would walk around and make sure that they were putting people to sleep in surgery correctly and instruct them. My father, I grew up in an alcoholic home. He was a construction worker, and he was an alcoholic. He was very verbally abusive at times. He could have been physically abusive, but that's just how we grew up, and I didn't know there was anything different. So when I got there, and my mom picked me up at the airport, she had all her belongings in the back seat of her car and in her trunk. And I said, Mom, I said, what's with all the stuff? And she said, well, me and your dad aren't getting along. We're going to get a divorce, and I'm just between places, so just throw your suitcase on top of the stuff. So I didn't think a thing about it. You know, they had always fought back and forth, always threatened to divorce each other, and so that was just a way of life for us. And that night we went to one of the rental houses that my parents owned. They owned several rental houses, and this one happened to be empty at the time. My father was working on it, trying to fix it up, paint it, so he had some tools there. And I said, well, why are we going to the house? And she said, well, because your dad's there, so I've been staying at this house. And we get there, and there's just a mattress on the floor in the middle of the room with a blanket and a couple pillows. And she said, we're going to stay here tonight. And I was like, well, okay. And then we get ready to go to bed, and right before we go to bed, she goes around and she gathers up all the sharp tools and puts them under her pillow, and she's like, okay, now we can go to bed. Now I still haven't figured out what's going on. I'm still not doing this, but I'm still getting closer, because I'm like, something's not right with this, but I can't put my finger on it. So as we're laying there, she's like, can you hear your dad? Can you hear him? Can you see? I look out the window and I see a pickup truck go by. That was your dad. He's trying to kill me. He's got another woman, and he's trying to kill me, and I don't know what we're going to do about it. Well, this didn't seem unnatural for me, because my dad was a womanizer. He had had several affairs. You know, I thought, wow, they're finally gonna get a divorce. But, you know, he's never threatened to kill her, so maybe she's just exaggerating, I'm not sure. So I called my brother and I said, yeah, we're not going to be sleeping on the floor in this mattress another night. We're coming to your house to stay, because something's not right. You're right, can't put my finger on it, but there's something not right. Now, mind you, I had been a mental health nurse and an addictions nurse for 8 years already. My brother was a paramedic who went on many calls of overdoses, of mental health cases where people were being involuntarily committed, and so we had some kind of understanding of addiction and mental health. So that night, while my mother tried to, at supper time, tell us how my dad was trying to kill her, and how there were people outside that were trying to shoot us. At one point in time, it's me, my brother, my sister-in-law, and my mom all crawling around on all fours in the living room, because she had us convinced that there were people outside trying to shoot us, because they were trying to kill her, but they were going to hit us. We were going to be hit in the crossfire. So I said, you know, just call Dad, just call him. So we called my dad, and I'm like, hey, are you driving by the house? And he's like, yeah, I'm driving by the house. I drive by the house. I drive all over to see where she's staying that night. So, you know, We can't make sense of this. Except for when we're driving, when we're all on all fours, and my mom is so convincing that we're gonna all die that night. My eyes, her eyes, and my brother's eyes, we all lock eyes. And we see what we call in the mental health field, the crazy eyes. They're glassed, they're glassy, they're glossed over, and they look right through you. And it's a look that you never forget. And it was at that moment that my brother looked at me and I looked at him, and we were like, crazy eyes. And it was at that moment that we knew it wasn't my father. He wasn't trying to kill her. It was that our mom, there was something wrong with her. So, the next day, tried to talk her into not going to work. We're like, this is serious. Like, you go in and out of having rational moments and not. You can't be putting people to sleep, and you certainly can't be over 8 people that are putting people to sleep. You're going to kill somebody. And she was like, no, I'm fine. So we thought, okay, here's the answer. We're gonna call the doctors, and we're going to tell the doctors she can't be doing this. That, you know, she's very psychotic, she's paranoid, she needs to not be doing that. And the doctor said to us, oh, we understand. We understand your mom and dad are getting a divorce. We understand children take sides. Your moms were functioning perfectly well at work. I'm sorry, but we're not going to get in the middle of this. So we were very worried. We were extremely worried. And so we went to my dad and said, what's going on? So he told us over the last 4 months how my mom progressively, he saw her changing with this mental illness. And we said, why on earth didn't you call us? Why on earth aren't you doing something about it? And he said, oh, I'm not going to do anything about it. He said, if I do, she'll never forgive me. And we were like, well, what do you want us to do? And he said, well, you guys need to fix this. And those were his exact words. We needed to fix it. And I carried so much of that weight on my shoulders because I was in the family of addiction. I was the hero. I came to fix this. And I didn't know how. So, I'm sorry. So the next day we called my other 2 brothers, and said, you guys need to help us out here. And they said, oh, we won't have any parts of that. You are not going to send our mother to a mental health institution. She's well known in the community. She puts people, you can't do that to her. That is a killer of her, what she does for a living. I can't think of the words, but you know what I mean, yeah. And so we were like, okay, no one's going to help us. It's going to be me and my brother. What are we going to do? So we try and convince her to go to a mental health unit, not having it. Not having it because when she was in her early years of being an orthonesthetist, she went every Saturday and she helped them do electric shock treatments on people. And that was her mentality of what a mental health unit was. And she was not going to go there. So, long and short of it is, it was the night before I was getting ready to fly home. And I sat on the bed and I was just crying and crying and crying. And my mom came in. And this woman I had been with for the last 4 days, who I was literally physically and emotionally exhausted from being with her, because she thought there were people in the car and under the bed and in the basement where there was no basement and outside. It was exhausting. And I was sitting on the bed and she looks at me for the first time like my mother. And she comes and sits next to me and she sees me crying and she says, what's wrong? What's wrong? I can see your grief. What's wrong? And I said, you're sick and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help you. And she said, I tell you what, I am so convinced that I am not having a mental breakdown that I will go see a psychiatrist and I will go on medication, but you will not put me in a mental health facility. And she said, however, if the doctor says that I'm not sick, then you have to take me with you back to Pennsylvania and get all my stuff where I know I'll be safe. And I said, it's a deal, and we shook on it. The next morning I got up, I got the yellow pages out, I started a day, and went all the way through until I got to the G's, and I got a hold of a psychiatrist who said, I just happened to come in this morning, my secretary was sick, I came in an hour early. If you can be here in 10 minutes, I'll give you 5 minutes. And I said, I will be there. We got in there, and I wanted to go in with her, and he's like, oh, no. You stay out here. And I was like, oh, she's going to convince him. She's going to convince him like she's convinced everybody else. And he said, no, you sit out here. He went in and he spoke to her for 2 minutes. And he came out and he said, this lady is severely psychotic and is also paranoid. But he said, she's not a danger to herself, and she's not a danger to anyone else. She hasn't said she's going to kill herself, and she doesn't have a plan, because that is the criteria for the insurance company. You need to have a plan, and you need to be able to follow through with it. He said, I can't 302 her, I haven't seen enough in 2 minutes, but he said, this is what she's agreed to, this is what I can do for you. He said, if you can find someone that she can stay with for 3 days, I will hit her with so much Thorazine. Every time she wakes up, you give her a Thorazine, you give her something to eat, you give her something to drink, have her go back to bed for 3 days. And he said, when she wakes up, she won't hear the voices anymore. And he said, then we can start this journey. So that's my story. So what I want to do is, Sam wanted me to talk about the feelings of what we felt as a family, but also the part of my journey with my mother was trying to understand how she felt. And I think that's really important as a church, that we can understand how she felt, because that's how we do what this lady just said. That's how we confrontation people. That's how we do it, because we have to have an understanding. So, ma'am, you in the black, I would like for you to come up and sit in this chair. What's your name?
Edwina.
Edwina, can you please come and sit in this chair? And I need 2 volunteers. Bob, will you volunteer? Because you have a nice, loud voice.
Go, Bob.
I'm going to do some moving around here.
Put your shoes on.
Bob, you're going to stand. You're going to stand on this side of her, Bob. And I want you in her ear. Now, don't speak anything really horrible of her. But I want you to say to her, there's people outside. They're going to get you. When it gets dark, they're coming. You're really ugly. Why are you here again? You need to do that. You need to do that. And we're confessing right now, Lord, that we're not speaking anything evil over her. But you just need to whisper that in her ear. I need another volunteer. Oh, who else can volunteer? Okay, why don't you come up? What's your name?
Jan.
Jan, you're going to stand on this side of her, and you're going to say to her, okay, this is our agenda for today. This is our agenda for today, and you're going to try and get her to focus on what it is that you're telling her that you have planned for today, while Bob is speaking in her ear, whispering in her ear, voices.
Are we talking loud so that they can hear?
You just need to be so that they can hear. And then we're going to be over here doing life, because life is going on. So.
Can we switch roles?
No, you cannot. I chose you especially, so you need to go. All right, so Sam wanted me to talk about the clinical. And the reason that this young lady sitting in the chair, I did not give her a choice. I didn't ask if she would be a volunteer. Is it because mental illness does not give you a choice? It's not a choice thing. You don't say, oh, I think instead of cancer, I'll take mental illness. Nobody says that. And it happens fast, and it happens suddenly. And when it does, this is how it is. All right? So he wanted me to talk about the clinical. So if you look at what happened in my family, what are the kind of things that you saw when, what should have been a red flag for me that wasn't, that when I, can you think of anything?
The sharp tools.
The sharp tools, yeah. What else? No, keep going. People have this all day long,
I don't have any practice with this.
Well, then you need to say that in her, just whisper in her.
I didn't hear what Bob was saying to her.
Okay, Bob is saying, there's someone out to get you. They're outside. You're ugly. Why are you here again? That's what he's whispering. Those are the voices. And she is a family member, and she's trying to say to her, this is what we're going to do today. Are you listening to me? This is the agenda I have for today. So what other things in my family?
Isolation.
Isolation. My mom had isolated herself. She was living in her car. All her stuff was in her car. That should have been a red flag for me. So here's the shark tools. We're sleeping on a mattress in an empty house, and she's a nurse anesthetist that makes over $200,000 a year. There's something wrong with this picture. Okay. So on paper, when you look at this, clinically, what is the problem? And yet, I was a mental health nurse, and my brother was a paramedic. But when you're in it, when it's you, when it's your family, it's not this easy to see.
Amen.
All right? Okay, you guys can stop.
I wasn't done.
I think she was.
I was.
All right, so this is what we're going to do. Thank you so much. So, not you. So, what does it feel to be all of a sudden something you didn't choose, the center of attention, and the commotion that just happened while life was happening over here? What can you tell me how that felt?
Well, I knew what Bob was saying was not Bob, and it went back to many years of abuse.
I'm so sorry. I asked her to give me somebody who didn't have anything, so I'm sorry.
We all do.
But we all do. We all do.
That's right.
So you knew that what he was saying wasn't true.
Right.
But was it hard to filter out what he was saying and focus on what she was trying to tell you to do?
Yes, she talked about lunch and dinner and...
But you can't give me any details.
Oh, okay.
But you can't give me details about that because of...
At first I felt like I was going crazy when Bob started speaking. And then when I heard Jan, I tried to tune him out so I could listen to her and have a positive outlook.
So not only did the things that he was saying bring up all this other stuff in you, but you had to really focus hard on what she was saying, and you probably only got half of it, if that. So if I blindfolded her or had her put her hands over her eyes, let's add that on, that would be medication. Medication that you get that kind of even more, makes you foggy as to what's going on and how difficult it is. But thank you so much for doing that. But I just wanted to do that because I think you saw, thank you so much. It's hard. You're all of a sudden thrown front and center. You're all of a sudden the focus of the family, and you didn't choose it. Now that I'm all better, I can talk about my mom's story. It's still very difficult. It probably will always be difficult because I was very close to my mother. And one of the things that just gave me a sadness is that I always wondered if my mom was in there. Sometimes I thought I could see her in that face, in that mask that she wore, because she was diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic. And it ended up being she started, after 3 days, she did wake up. She wasn't hearing the voices anymore. She could say to me, I didn't realize I was hearing voices. They sounded so real. And we talked about that. And I said, well, tell me how it is. And that's exactly what she told me. She said, well, it's like someone standing on this side, whispering in my ear. And it's like someone else standing over here trying to tell me. And it's like trying to focus. So that's how I come up with that, because my mom told me that. The other thing that I didn't write here is the addiction. I mean, had my dad not been a womanizer, had he not been an alcoholic, we might have been able to get my mom the treatment much sooner, to the point where she wouldn't have got where she was. It's very difficult to get treatment when you don't know what to do. Had my dad not been an alcoholic, he probably wouldn't have waited 4 months and just done nothing. But he knew he didn't have the tools, and he didn't have the ability to reach out and say, I need your help. It wasn't until we took the initiative to do that. And so that's one thing that I want to share with families, that if you see something, these things that we see on TV with mental illness, I don't believe that they just happen overnight. I mean, some of them probably do, but most of them, it's a planned thing that builds up. But somebody needs to say something. Someone needs to do something. Someone needs to do a carefrontation. I love that. That's going to be my new thing. Because every little thing matters. Even if you see a little thing, God says in His Word that we're to restore. If we see someone in sin, we're to restore them gently. But I believe that even if we see them in an illness, we're to restore them gently. And I think gently is the key word there. So I'm going to try not to take up very much time, because I know that they're getting lunch ready and I want to honor that. But some of the things that I want to share with you that was life-giving to me from God, and how to love my mother in her mental illness, it was loving her unconditionally. And that's hard to do, because the person that I looked at my dad and his addiction wasn't really my dad. Like Wayne said, his dad loved him. His dad drove a couple hours to go to a basketball. You don't do that if you don't love somebody. But he had a critical spirit. My dad had a critical spirit, but I knew that he loved me. But I never heard that he loved me till the very end, when he ended up being my mom's caretaker, because the paranoid schizophrenia was really just a precursor to them diagnosing her with early onset Alzheimer's at 59. So when God showed me that He saw my mom untainted. He saw her the way He created her in her mother's womb. He saw her with all the gifts that He had given her. That's how He saw her. He said, all you gotta do, Carrie, is instead of looking at her and saying, that lady is not my mom. My mom's in there somewhere, but that's not my mom. And He said, you gotta see her the way I see her. And as I saw her the way that God saw her, she responded to that. And she was able to continue taking her medicine. And we had ups and we had downs. That's how it goes. That's how the disease goes. That's how the addiction goes. That's how mental illness goes. But during those times, if I could see her the way God saw her, untainted, then she responded to that. It's a magnet thing. The other thing that I worried about is that I knew that she was saved. She wasn't just a woman, a Catholic woman, but she was always, if there was a Catholic church we went to, she was always like this with the priest. That priest was at our house every Monday night, and she always fed them broccoli and a T-bone steak and a baked potato. Every Monday night. We had hot dogs. We had macaroni and cheese, but the priest always had a T-bone steak, broccoli, and baked potato. And that's what my mom did. So I knew she was saved. And I knew that, I always wondered, well, in her mental illness, is she able to cry out to God? And God gave me this wonderful, wonderful thing. He said, well, do you believe me, Carrie? And I said, well, of course I believe you. And he said, do you believe in my promises? And I said, well, of course I believe in your promises. And he said, well, do you believe that when people accept the Lord Jesus Christ, that I deposit the Holy Spirit within them? Because it says in His Word that when we accept Jesus Christ, that the Holy Spirit lives in us. And I said, well, yeah, I don't know. And he said, no, do you believe that? And so I have to go to that scripture and read it over and over again. It doesn't say you get the full measure. You just get a deposit. And he said, if you can believe that the Holy Spirit is in her, then I am still in her. And that just gave me a peace that surpasses all understanding, because I knew that God hadn't left her. He hadn't forsaken her. He was still in this. He was in this journey. He was in it. And the last thing that I want to say is about grace. You know, God's grace is so wide and so deep and so long that it's something that not only do we need to extend to those that are suffering from addiction and mental illness, but we need to extend it for ourselves. I felt so much guilt over not being able to fix it right away, and at different times when she wasn't taking her medicine or things weren't quite right, and carried that. And the Lord just told me, He said, stop carrying all that. Stop carrying all that. Why are you carrying all that? You say you believe in me, you say you trust me, and you're just dragging this bag along. He said, if you will let go of that bag, let me show you what I can do in your family. And in my family, out of my mother's mental illness, my father stopped drinking. And I always say he was a dry drunk because he didn't go to rehab, he didn't go to AA, but he stopped drinking. And he took care of my mother until 2 weeks before he died. And I don't know if you've ever been with someone with Alzheimer's, but it's a lot of work. It is extremely a lot of work. And we saw him love her the way we had never seen him love her, our whole growing up. And also, we were able then to talk to him about his addiction and about his alcoholism and how, because we wounded him. In this whole process, we wounded him because he was like, how could you guys believe that I would kill your mother and that I was going to run off with another woman? And we're like, oh, well, because you were a womanizer or a drunk. And so it opened up a thing that we could have never opened up. If we'd have gone to our dad and said, you know what, we want to talk to you about your drinking and your womanizing, he would have been like, go to you-know-where. But the way that God orchestrated all of it, we were able to do that. And when my dad died, he had given his life back to the Lord, and it was a very short time that we had with him that he took care of my mom and all that, but they were the best days, and those are the days I choose to remember. And so it makes me sad. It makes me sad that I could, that up until the point that, my mom got sick, I love my mom, we were best friends, but then it just kind of switched. And then my relationship was with my dad, and it wasn't really with the mom that I knew anymore. But you know what? I just know that out of all of it, that God's in the midst of it. So what helped me? I have to tell you, one of the biggest things that helped me is that you need to surround yourself by godly people. Either church people or people that you know that are Christians, that know the Word and stand in the Word and have an understanding. Bob's wife Cindy is a very dear friend of mine, and she understood it because her dad had a mental breakdown. And so every time things got really hard, I would call Cindy and I'd say, will you pray with me? Will you meet me for tea? I need to vent. This is what's going on, the insanity of it. And sometimes we have each other as accountability. I said to her, if you ever see me acting crazy, you think that I'm truly losing it, because this runs mental illness and Alzheimer's runs in people's families. I said, you need to let me know. I trust you. You are a person I trust has the best in my interest, and you're a godly woman. And so we've given each other that. She calls me sometimes and says, okay, this just is what happened. Am I crazy? Am I thinking crazy or not? So you need that. You need that. Other things, reach out your church family. Unless you educate your church family, as I tell my story, if I see people cry, it breaks their heart. That's not my intention. My intention is for them to understand, because when they saw me at church, they used to say to my mother-in-law and father-in-law, oh, Linford and Carrie, they have it all together. Look at them. They come every week with a smile on their face, and their children are just perfect. And I thought to myself, that could not be further from the truth if you only knew. And so little by little, in my church family, I would tell my story. But no one's going to know your story if you're not telling it. You have to get beyond that embarrassment. You have to get beyond that shame. And if you go to the feet of Jesus, He will give you that courage. He will give you that strength. And He will give you a platform to do it. So thank you.